So we should get started. Do you have some amazing opening line you want to use?
Um, no. I am happy to be alive after being sick for a couple days. That's my opening for this week.
That's
Hence why we are digital. I didn't want to get Corey or his family sick, so.
and it is much appreciated. So hi, welcome. This is the Full Metal Journalist podcast. And we have some things to talk about today, as per usual. It's going to be a little bit different because he can't see me at all. And I see everything on the left monitor, and my notes are on the right monitor, and there's a lot going on. So, yeah. This is going to look weird. It's going to look different, and it'll be the same next week, and then we'll go back to normal, hopefully, the following week.
Yep.
So, it is the week of May 17th, 2024, and some things have happened. First off, like, comment, subscriptions, all that good stuff to actually do help out. It lets us know people are watching the podcast and what they like and what they don't like. So tell us in the comments below. And we'll get to a point where we'll start reading a couple of comments here and there during the podcast, toward the end, kind of. But for now, let's get started. So, Jamie, Marvel Rivals Terms of Service has non-disparagement clause to prevent players from giving negative comments or reviews. Did you send that one, or was this one from me?
I think you put it in, but I think you beat me to the punch because yeah, I saw that one as well. That's absolutely absurd. I know we spent some time in the past talking about like NDAs and stuff, so obviously not the same ballpark, but kind of a similar feeling, right? Just some some weird stuff going on there. Like, I mean, how could you even, you know, dictate that? Like, that makes no sense. Like, no court's gonna hold that up. I'm sorry. It's stupid.
Yeah. Well, see, it's not really about the. I don't know what that would have been about court or whatever. And this is a really common thing in the game journalism space.
Right.
Um, it drives me crazy because I actually had a disagreement with one of my viewers over my scoring of 100 Heroes because I gave it a 6 out of 10. I love the game. It's a good game, but it's got a lot of room for growth. And
Right.
he was upset. He said 6 out of 10 was a bordering on an insult. I'm like, only if you work for IGN and the games, the game makers and developers and stuff are sending you free games and also paying for ads in your, on your website. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't give them that low of a score. But a 6 is above average.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole point of the 1 through 10 system, or in some cases 0. If you go back to old EGM days, I
Mm-hmm.
know they definitely did that. But yeah, I mean, looking at it from that perspective, because I used to write ages ago, like when the OG Xbox was around for a few different websites, and like I never had to sign anything like that before back then. I know things have changed since then, and I went to a different industry, but I just think it's silly. Like, I just don't know, like, if that's gonna happen. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, if you do it, right? I mean, is it gonna be a situation of, oh, we're not gonna send you any future like preview copies of the game because you were so bad talking about us? I don't know. I think it's silly.
Well, I think part of it is just that they've been, especially like Marvel games and stuff, or not Marvel games, but like super, like what happened with the DC one, Suicide Squad, I think it was,
Yeah.
um, or the Unaliving Crew, if we want to be YouTube friendly, um, they they of course they got absolutely just wrecked with reviews. Um, they've rolled it back. Apparently, I'm looking at it here. They've sincerely apologized for the miscommunication and your unpleasant experiences. So basically, they got wrecked, which we're going to talk about somebody else getting wrecked in a minute. But I feel like all we have lately is negative news, just like people just constantly doing the dumbest things and expecting to just get away with it.
Exactly. I mean, we're living in that day and age now where like everything is so public. You just got to be careful what you're doing online. And if you're a big company like this, or maybe I don't even know if this company's big or not. To be honest with you, I never heard of them before. Marvel Rivals. Just my dog in the background. Sorry. Um, yeah, like, I mean, Disney, like, what is Disney going to do about this? They own Marvel, and if they see negative press about any of their licenses, like, they're not going to be very happy about that. And maybe that's why they put it in the clause, non-disparagement, because they don't want to take off Disney. I don't know. It's interesting to see what will happen from this, if anything.
So I looked up the company. It's actually NetEase was the name of
Right.
the company. Um, I'm not seeing anything too impressive currently. I mean, they did like a random Harry Potter game. They got a random Lord of the Rings game. They seem to get licensed stuff. Viking Guard. They've literally never. Oh, they make Omiyoji, which is that's actually a mobile game I have played. So they make a lot of. They also
Okay.
made some game called Marvel Super War. Yeah, but
Yeah, I just saw that too.
I've never heard of. Oh, there's a more but. Never mind. They made a Tom and Jerry game too, and a third Marvel game. So it looks like they just randomly get licensing for big IPs and then wreck them.
Yeah, that seems to be the
'Cause
case.
I've never heard of any of these.
Me either.
So
So
that's just ridiculousness, though. Obviously, they would never be able to follow through with that, and that's
no,
kind of one of the reasons I do my reviews and stuff, because I'm not beholden to anybody, and I never will be. I don't care if SquareSoft sends me an early copy of Final Fantasy 17. If it's garbage, I'm gonna tell you it's garbage, and they could just not
exactly.
say me. I'll pay $60 for a game. Screw it.
Absolutely. It's just ridiculousness.
Yeah. So,
Speaking of Final Fantasies and
uh,
Squinix.
I did say those words. Final Fantasy maker Square Enix will aggressively peruse a multi-platform strategy after profits tumble. This particular, oh, just to clarify, the last article was Eurogamer, I think, and
Yes.
this one's IGN.
Yes.
So, you haven't played any recent Final Fantasy games or anything, have you?
No, I have not. Well, I take that back. Like, I did do the Pixel Remaster series. I played most of those, but not any like the actual like newly developed ones. Just the re-releases.
Gotcha. Yeah. So so you're talking about the Pixel remasters.
Yes.
Okay. So I basically play every Final Fantasy game that comes out. Much like Resident Evil, I'm a big old fanboy, and with me being a streamer and reviewer stuff, I kind of try to jump on everything as it comes out. Um, this is a good because I mean I literally just googled how many PS5s have been sold, and the answer is about 49 million.
Okay.
Um, so when you have a niche genre like RPGs and even action RPGs, which is what Final Fantasy 16 was, it, having it only on a console that only 49 million people have, there's just what are you how are you going to make the sales that you're expecting when nobody can buy your game? So I think most companies should get off of this exclusive bandwagon.
Yeah, and this is definitely a new trend. I mean, we see Microsoft doing it as well, talking about opening up their books, and then Sony, um, which Sony was exciting for me being able to play through like the Spider-Man series. I know they haven't released Part 2 yet on Steam, but Spider-Man 1 and being able to share that with my family through their Steam accounts as well. That's pretty cool. And then going back to Square, like if you step aside from the Final Fantasy world for a moment. Also, Foam Stars, like that is kind of like their equivalent of Splatoon
Uh-huh.
that Nintendo is overseeing.
Mhm.
I am really excited to see Foam Stars get released like on PC or maybe for that to come to Switch as well. I think that's like the perfect multi-platform game that they have right now. That's a new IP. So
Man, I forgot about that. Like, it keeps popping up randomly in conversations. I get emails and stuff about it, but it never like I've never had any desire to play it. It's so just not my lane. Like,
I didn't think I would like it either, but once I actually sat down and went through it a little bit because I did have it on PlayStation 5 for a bit. Yeah, it was fun. Like I could definitely see that one blowing up more now.
okay, well, I mean, if it does hit PC, maybe I'll give it. I guess I could play on PS5, but like, it's a full price game, right? 60.
It may be. I'm not sure if you have like any of the PlayStation Plus packages. I'm fairly certain it's on one of those now.
Oh,
So
okay, cool.
yeah, you could just do that.
Give it the old try.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, just I guess just to put a footnote on that, it's great that Square Enix is going to start releasing their stuff multi-platform. That means Final Fantasy 16. Well, it was always going to get PC release, but
Yeah.
hopefully that means Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth gets a quicker port, and then of course Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 3, whatever that ends up being called, um, will get kind of a simultaneous release across Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 5, so it can actually make the sales that they're expecting because they're putting a lot of money into it.
Oh yeah.
So
And
I mean,
give me a Final Fantasy IX remake or give me death. That's still my favorite. So
allegedly they're working on. I actually recently heard too that they did, while they did trash a bunch of their studios, the Final Fantasy, or no, sorry, the Dragon Quest 3 remake in like that 2.5D style is
yeah,
still going. It's still moving. So,
that's good.
and neither did Dragon Quest 12. That also didn't get canceled. So,
They would be insane if they canceled either of those.
agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so speaking of Sony's PlayStation Plus stuff, like I mentioned before, Xbox Game Pass, or rather, I guess the PR team lead blames studio closures, all the ones we talked about last week, on Game
Right.
Pass,
This,
which makes a lot of sense to
yeah.
me.
Yeah, because I mean, the profit sharing of these programs, I mean, we're seeing issues in the other realms of, take the streaming world, for example. There's not too many companies that are actually very profitable off of providing streaming. So being able to share profits off of something that isn't profitable to begin with, like this, we as much as I love like being able to use these services for video games, the same goes for like movies and TV shows for streaming. Like it's just not like I don't think it was ever really defined very well. And like the early days, you could get rights to these IPs for pennies on the dollar, but as time went on, stuff became more expensive, so you had to cut bigger contracts with these companies. Um, and so for an internal studio, like we have here in this situation, where the PR blames, the Game Pass, they're probably going to get less amount of profit than say a third party studio because the third party studio they got to cut the bigger contract with to keep them happy. Otherwise, they may go off and pull like an what Epic Games did with Steam years ago, where they said, "Hey, we can open up our own game store too." So it's really messy situation right now. So um, as much as I love the services like Xbox and PlayStation Plus, and I know Nintendo's kind of dabbling with it a little bit, but not really because they're just sticking to giving like, oh hey, here's some of our older games that was like on the Super Nintendo or regular Nintendo. Um, yeah, I think the way they're doing it that makes sense because they're not really involving a lot of outside sources, so it keeps the contracts very like straightforward. I think the closest ties they have right now would be with Sega, but even then they have a really good relationship right now. But if I'm a Microsoft and at one time Microsoft was competing directly with these companies before the Game Pass, and now they're doing the whole buddy buddy thing. Like, hey, we'll cut a contract. So unfortunately, the internal studios is the suspects of being just destroyed at this point. Unfortunately, from the effects.
Well, and there's also like they need to redo how they do Game Pass, especially for like big game releases that are day one Game Pass. Because
Yeah,
going back to Hi-Fi Rush, which was a day one Game Pass, game, um, they do this. They have really good like revenue sharing up front, but then once that revenue sharing's over, it kind of falls off. So like if somebody plays Hi-Fi Rush, 4 months after it hits Game Pass, then it's not doing as well for the company because it's kind of, they give them kind of like a upfront bulk payment. They're like, here's all
yeah,
this money we're putting on a Game Pass, and the company's like, cool. And then if that game would have sold, way more copies than Game Pass, paid for them, then they just kind of got screwed. But I think these companies should start doing like a temporary contract with Games Pass rather than like a permanent one. Because
yeah,
again, going back to Hi-Fi Rush, if they were like, okay, we'll let you have Hi-Fi Rush on Game Pass for 1 month for this amount of money, that
yeah,
gives the game dropping, and people are effectively able to get it quote unquote for free. That company gets their revenue share. Then the game comes off of Game Pass after a month, and then the laggards are like, I missed it. Well, I guess I'll go pay $30 for it on Steam now. So then the company can continue to make more money. But instead, that person 4 months later is going to go, oh, I can just play it on Game Pass for $15, and
yeah.
they're not getting any more money. So I think this a part of this is on the companies in themselves in general. Like if for a smaller indie game, I can see it working pretty decently. Like okay, we only expect to sell 10,000 copies, so we can take this deal with Microsoft and get about that much anyways up front and start developing our next game. But for big
Yeah.
releases, I just don't think Game Pass or PlayStation Premium Plus Extra XL Super Par or whatever the fuck it. I probably have to edit that out. Trying to keep
There's
family
way
friendly
too many
here.
versions. Yeah, way too many versions. And so it's funny as you were, sharing your thoughts on it too. That made me think about the movie industry, and this is something where, they could borrow from the movie industry if you think about how it's set up. I know we have the streaming stuff we deal with now, but you have like your big releases. They'll come to movie theaters first, and then they go to rental mode or on demand, however you want to word it these days.
Yeah.
So that may be another path too. So if I'm a AAA game, studio, even if even if I'm an internal studio for Microsoft, it could be a situation where, look, I know it's been all cool and stuff getting the game day one, but it's hurting the industry. So what if we just sell it normally for X amount of time and then release it for Game Pass and then cut contracts that way? I think unfortunately we probably wouldn't be able to do that now because the what's the saying, the cart came before the horse, right?
Yeah.
So they've gotten gamers so used to getting the games up front on day one, so it might end up ticking more people off and there'll be a protest, but that's probably what should have happened to begin with, but who
Yeah,
knows?
missteps from the get go.
Yeah,
It couldn't last. I mean, I appreciate the effort, the idea, but the execution just isn't great. Because, like I said, too many companies are losing so much money that they're having to shut down
exactly.
the thing. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
um, next story is GameStop again.
Oh boy.
Oh, did you not see this?
I've been looking into this from oh geez, I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah, I'm on Reddit, so I kind of got wind of this early on a little bit. Um, I don't really play the stocks personally, but
Same.
I do watch from a distance because I'm scared of losing all my money, playing the market like that.
Yep.
This has been interesting. So, yeah, 70% is what they're saying the stock has risen recently. That was as of May 13th,
Yeah, I mean
Yahoo Finance.
we're about 6 days later at this point, and like they're calling it meme stocks, and they did this a few years ago or whatever. I tried to get in on it, and I failed miserably. I lost like $200.
There's a whole movie about it, if
Yeah.
anyone's interested.
Wait, there's a movie about this?
Oh, yeah, yeah, they've already made a movie about it.
Oh my god,
Oh, yeah.
that's crazy. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that GameStop is happening again. Apparently, I don't know why people are doing this. I guess they're bored.
Yeah, if you're interested, it is on Netflix. It's called Dumb Money. It came out last year,
Oh
and
wow.
it covers the whole behind the scenes debacle with like stock shortage as a term that's used pretty heavily, like in this portion of the stock industry, where people will bet on shorts. So companies that they think they're going to go south, there's like certain ways that you can like bet the market to make money off of that taking place. And unfortunately, in some situations, we've seen this with other like large companies will cause them to go out of business, and so that's where the whole like spiel came from, and the movie covers that. So Dumb Money is the name of it if you're interested.
Yeah, and I personally hate stock market. It's not real. It's like the weirdest like legal gambling I've ever heard of. It
Exactly.
legitimately is. But yeah, that's just I wanted to mention that. Something else I wanted to mention, for gamers, there was a bunch of updates for multiplayer games. Like okay, so this is gonna tie it into a different conversation. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover two things at one time here. Um, I gave you the link to that thing from Pirate Software, which I'm actually going to include in the video.
Okay.
It'll be muted, but it's subtitled because his video is subtitled.
Right.
But basically, Sony was, we talked about a couple weeks ago. Sony was like, "Hey, you have to have a PSN account to play Helldivers 2," and the community was like, "How about no?" and started review bombing Helldivers 2. And
Exactly.
so Sony was like, "Hey, okay, my bad." But what they did was, even though they said they weren't going to do the PSN account, they pulled the game from, it's now up to 180 countries that don't have access to PSN. So they're doing it anyway. So if somehow you're watching this and you don't know about this and you've changed your review on Helldivers 2, flip it. They think they pulled a fast one, and they totally did. And again, right around in here, I'm actually going to put the thing from Pirate Software talking about it. But you can even go on Steam right now. I pulled it up, and there's
Right.
people talking about it, like giving it negative reviews and be like, "Hey, I flipped my review, and then I realized what they did, and I put it back." So Everybody needs to do that, and they just need to go back and review bomb the game until Sony gets their act together. Because otherwise, they're just going to start doing this, and it's just going to be a thing they do all the time.
Yeah.
You have to nip it in the bud before it gets bad. And the fact that they tried to pull this nonsense is indicative that they don't care about the player base. They just want to do what they want to do. So yeah, Helldivers 2 debacle.
Yeah. Do people really read those reviews? Like, I honestly don't look at them unless like someone calls them out to me in situations like this, and then I'll go look at them. Or like that whole thing like a few years ago where people were leaving funny reviews on like Amazon for like the most random products, which I actually partook in myself for fun. I came across like a DVD that played fan noises for 10 hours, and so I decided to write like a novella and posted it as a review on the site. So. But other than that, like I typically don't read reviews. I'll look at the footage and say, okay, that looks cool, I'm gonna buy it, or that looks crappy, I'm not gonna buy it. That's usually my MO.
So my experience has been the opposite. I think a lot of people do check reviews, because first off, you just Helldivers 2, this debacle aside, you go to it and you're like, oh, okay, well it's overwhelmingly positive.
Right.
It's not right now, but like it used to be. And you click on it and you're like, okay, well these are what the reviews say. Well, what are the negative reviews? So you put on the 1-star reviews and you read through. It's like, oh, well, if I have this processor or this problem can happen, or this is how you fix this problem, or whatever. And sometimes it's just random review bomb and go, oh, woke. But I know there are a lot of people who do use the reviews. I won't buy a game on Steam unless it's mostly positive, at least.
Gotcha.
Generally speaking. Now that can change depending on different circumstances. And there was a game that came out, something 3, Homeworld 3. Came out a week ago, and our friend Ian actually pre-ordered the collector's edition back in like 2020, and it actually has, I don't know if it still does, I have to look, but it had negative reviews, I believe, and he returned it.
It is flagged as mixed right now. I just pulled it up on my Steam account. Yeah.
So yeah, he returned it because the review. Well, he had a different reason for returning it. He has this whole thing about money, and he felt guilty about paying that much for something or whatever, I think. But then after he returned it, he was looking at the reviews. He's like, "Oh, I'm glad I returned it."
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
I do think there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah, I honestly just rely off of like I have my core group of like gamer friends. Like I'll chat with them, and as you know, it's rare for me to buy something day one unless it's like a something I've been excited about for years, like Legend of Zelda or pretty much anything Turtles. Like it could be just the crappiest turtle game. I'm still gonna buy it day one just because it's me and I love turtles. But beyond that, like I typically rely off of what my friends will say because I mean they're my gaming friends for a reason. We play similar stuff, so I'm gonna hear them out, and if they like it, like Helldivers, that's a good example. Like pretty much almost universally, all my friends that have played Helldivers 2 say they love it, and personally, like, I mean, yeah, they were ticked off with the situation, but I know for a fact they're still playing it today. There's like a few on my Steam list right now that are playing it as we speak. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
Well, and okay, so the reason I tied that into this other story is because there are 3 great multiplayer games that are not being jackasses right now that just got major updates.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So V Rising, which I told you last week, me and Ian and my friend Haven are all playing, got its 1.0 release finally, and it's been really fun. We've been going in, we're on a PvP server, and we're running around killing enemies and leveling up and getting better gear, and it's just fun. Valheim actually got a new update called Fiery Ashlands, which actually added an entirely new biome, over 30 weapons, and lots of new inventive ways to burn to death, apparently, because the Ashlands they're a little toasty.
Nice.
So that's those, and then there was one more, which was Lethal Company got a few new moons, which also means a few new enemies and stuff. And I know people like mod the hell out of that game, but
yeah, totally.
There's like official new stuff now, so
that's awesome.
So yeah, if you're pissed about the Helldivers 2 stuff, jump on. There's plenty of multiplayer games that are worth playing.
And I actually picked up V Rising recently just to kind of tinker with it. I didn't realize that they had a crossover with Castlevania. And so that's in the store, so I'm excited to check that out. So
yeah, and I extended the offer to you last week. I know you've had a busy week, plus you've been sick, but you're welcome to jump on the server with us and just chill inside our castle. Ian doesn't contribute. Ian logs in, we take him to kill some bosses, and he logs out, and it's just me and Haven again for a week. So feel free to join him on that.
That sounds about right.
let's see. Apple apparently finally got a PS1 emulator.
No words. Absolutely no words.
I understand that Mac is more secure than Windows for the most part. It's not that people can't hack it; it's just that nobody owns one for them to bother trying. And I also know that Apple's better for a lot of artistic stuff. Like if I had a Mac, I would probably choose to edit videos in I believe it's called Final Cut because that's what I learned on when I was at school.
Right.
But I'm not gonna buy an as a gamer, I cannot justify purchasing a Mac product, and this is a great example of why. How long have you been able to do a PS1 emulator on an Android?
It's been a minute. Like I have a Galaxy Tab upstairs, and it's loaded with various things right now, and it's been that way for a long time. Like I even was able, granted it didn't work well, but even like the Amazon like Kindle Fire product, was able to add stuff to that through side loading back in the day, that is. But yeah, it's just I really don't know what to make of it. I know Apple definitely have their fans, but this is just one example of why I've always strayed away from the products. Like I've always had to use Apple for work related reasons, but other than that, usually like Windows or Linux personally. So
Yeah, I've always used, like I said, outside of in school when I used Final Cut and some other Apple software for video editing. I've not had any interest in an Apple. And then, God, I think it was 3 or 4 years before the pandemic. Even I was playing. I had a PS4 controller Bluetooth to my phone, and I played. And then I like screencast my phone to a big screen TV, and I was literally playing Lunar 2 Eternal Blue using my phone on my big screen TV.
oh yeah, I believe it.
Like you can do some wild stuff these days.
And then like introducing the mobile systems too out there, like Steam Deck. I know a lot of people use that, and there's like many other variations of it now. Like I know Lenovo has one, and there's a few others. But just being able to do stuff like this, it's so like easy to like set up now in comparison to the days of old. I remember being on Windows 98 and like manually going down to the command line to make alterations to emulators to get the right resolution, and making sure the sound card is working, and like a lot of that's been eliminated now. It's just insane like how easy it is. Don't even get me started on Raspberry Pi. uh, I know that really kind of set it off for a lot of people, and with arcade machines too. I've been able to do MAME emulation a lot easier with Raspberry Pi. So yeah, kudos to Apple, you caught up.
Well, I mean, at this point, you can play PS2 and PS3 games on an Android, so I wouldn't say
Yeah,
caught up.
well,
They took a step.
at least they tried.
They do get points for trying. And then the last bigger story that we had was one that I found out at the last minute, but Capcom is apparently working on their third Resident Evil 1 remake. They're
Is it really the third?
It is. So, well, no, because it was also like Resident Evil Director's Cut. So
Yeah,
they've done
that's
it a
what I was
bunch.
joking about. Because
But
even on the PlayStation 1 back in the day, they're like, oh, here's Resident Evil, here's Resident Evil Director's Cut, here's Resident Evil with DualShock.
yo,
And yeah, Capcom's notorious for that. I love them, don't get me wrong, but yikes.
well, so and here's the thing about that is I wanted this.
Yeah,
There are two Resident Evil games that absolutely need to be remade because they've all been remade at this point, right? Resident Evil 2, they did the RE engine, and then they remade Resident Evil 3, they've remade Resident Evil 4, 7 and 8 are beautiful games. 5 does need to be remade as well, but it's not as imperative.
yeah,
And same for 6. 6 feels a little outdated when you're playing it, but 6 is fine right now. It fits into the Resident Evil like canon at this point. But Resident Evil 1, even all the remakes have that like tank controls and the really bad inventory management. I think if God, the things that they can do, excuse me, if when they remake that, I'm really excited about this.
yeah, I'll play it. I'm definitely a fan of it. It's kind of funny, the first version of Resident Evil I actually played, I know a lot of people think of PlayStation 1, but was actually the Sega Saturn, because that's just
Really,
what I had at the time.
I didn't even know it was
And
on the Saturn.
oh yeah. So that I'm trying to think of what else. Capcom was very loyal to Sega back then, still, which they did continue over into the Dreamcast. But yeah, I played that first, and then there was used to be a local game store a couple towns over where Lofter and I live, that I would go to and get used games, and that's where I came across like the director's cut that we were joking about earlier. And then that was the first time I played it on PlayStation 1 back in the day. But yeah, Sega Saturn. The controls are terrible because I'll let you put up an image of the original Sega Saturn controller, but it didn't have like the analog sticks or anything like that, right? So it was very hard to control. But like even back then, I was like, okay, this is something cool. Like you just had a feeling that this was gonna be like game changing, and here we are these years later,
Still
talking
talking
about a
about
remake
it.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I'm glad you mentioned Sega. So I said two. There's actually three Resident Evil games that still need to be remade really badly. Resident
Oh
Evil
yes.
1 is one of them, and then the worst Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 0, needs to be remade. And then say the third,
Code Veronica.
Code Veronica.
I love that one.
Okay,
It's so
so
good.
I have to tell you a quick story about Code Veronica and why I don't like it.
Okay.
So in Code Veronica, towards the end of the game, you control Claire for a little while, and then you switch over to Chris for the final boss.
Right.
I played Code Veronica for the first time a couple years ago, and I didn't know that's how it was going to go down. But they shared an item box at one point. So Claire had like all of the guns because like I'm playing as Claire, I have all the guns, and then with no warning, and like after 30 to 45 minutes of gameplay, the scenario switches to Chris for the rest of the game. And so Claire had all my guns except for
Oh
like
no.
my shotgun and my knife. So I'd had to do like 10 attempts on the final boss, and I had to beat it with like it was like 8 shotgun shells and a knife. It was the worst.
I mean, that's impressive. So you should feel accomplished.
It's yeah, it was so irritating because I was like, if I could just let me get into Claire's inventory for a second without having to and I could have gone back and replayed I don't know if I could have. I might have overrode my saves.
That's funny.
So yeah, it was bad. I was so angry, but I did finally get through it, and I gotta admit, outside of that, Code Veronica is a fantastic Resident Evil game.
I'll never forget it might have been at E3. I can't remember if it was the Tokyo Game Show or E3 when they first showed it off. Like it gave me chill bumps, like watching the video that they released, and the fact that it was coming to Sega Dreamcast. Which at that point there was already like rumors going on that issues were going on behind the scenes, but that just made it feel like so worthy of still owning that console. I was a day one, pickup of Dreamcast. That was actually
you were also
the last thing I pre-ordered, or not? Excuse me, not pre-ordered. Yeah, actually, it was a pre-order. This is the last thing I pre-ordered through Walmart because Walmart did pre-orders at the time. Believe it or not, I don't know if they still do or not, but yeah. So I got that day one. I got Soul Calibur, and I got Power Stone, and then our friend Taylor. He had, what did he have that I didn't have? I can't remember, but yeah, like that had such a solid lineup for like launch titles. Like I'm still impressed by that, and I will put that lineup against any other lineup, you know, released before then, after then, whatever. Like Dreamcast was phenomenal. I would defend that until the day I die.
Well, I was about to say you were a day one purchaser of Dreamcast for sure, and you were also a day two entire book full of burned discs of Dreamcast games.
Unfortunately, I was my own downfall for the system. Yeah, that, to be clear, I didn't start burning CDs till about 2001. So, and it was already like, written in stone that they were dead. But yeah, I still have a full library. Not on burned CDs. I have a Terra Onion is what it's called. So I swapped out the disk drive and have that in place of it now to be able to play the game. So yeah.
All right, so
Dreamcast.
I have a secret final story that I have not shared with you.
Okay.
I'm going to send you an image over Discord.
Oh boy.
And we can talk about it. And here it is.
What is this I'm looking at? Silver and Blood, medieval sword and magic RPG.
Take a real good look at the picture.
Whoa, what is going on with the head and this hurts my brain. That's got to
Yes.
be AI art. I hope it's AI art.
You are
If not,
correct. That is AI art. So,
okay.
one one of the laziest kinds of games that exist that I am guilty of playing a lot. They're called gotcha RPGs.
Yeah.
Some great examples of them are Summoner's War, Epic 7. There are some that aren't quite as bad, like Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact. But they're very lazy cash grabs. Like, okay, here's a turn-based RPG, and they try to focus on PvP balance a little bit, but for the most part, you're mostly paying it for the waifus and sometimes the story and stuff.
Right.
And now that incredibly lazy method of making hand over fist, mind you, now they're doing it with AI art. So they're not even they're I don't know the first game that had the thing, but for me the first game that had this exact like style of gameplay was called Summoner's War. You get
Okay.
4 units. It's PvE, PvP. You get 4 units. Each unit has like up to 4 abilities. There's awakenings, like there's gear you put on them to increase their stats. Like it's a very specific kind of game. Um there's Summoner's War still around. There's Epic 7, Dislight. There's a bunch of games like this. Um and now they're not only crapping out these games with the exact same mechanics as every other version of the game, but they're doing AI art.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean, anything they can do to get these games, if you can call them that, like out to the market quickly as possible, and make a dime. That's pretty much all there is to it. And that reminds me of Nintendo seal of quality. Where's the Google Play and Apple Store seal of quality? And they're just like, whatever, y'all are making us money too. Go ahead and release them.
So, and I mean, at least the game's not doing amazingly, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's got 2.7 stars out of 14 reviews and only 1,000 downloads, which is garbage for a game like this. And I'm so glad people are seeing through this nonsense to a point.
yeah.
But the fact that it might have made $1 is pissing me off
Oh
because it
yeah,
probably
totally.
took less than that to make.
I believe it. It's funny you saying Summoner reminded me of. Did you ever play Summoner for PlayStation 2 back in the day?
No.
That has by far the best Easter egg. If it's not number one for me, it's definitely in the top five. Where like the characters from the Summoner game, I'll let you find the video on YouTube. They basically play D&D, and like there's this hilarious cutscene where one of the main monsters in the game is like in the kitchen, and he's trying to ask if anyone wants any like Mountain Dew or Cheetos. I forget what the exact line was. While they're trying to have like a serious D&D conversation. Look it up. Like it just reminded me of that. It's so funny. Like I think you'll get a kick out of it.
All right.
Definitely find it and link it for anyone listening to this, so that way they can watch it too in case they're unaware. It is so freaking funny.
I can do that. And lastly, I know you have a third episode of You Got Snapped, which I don't know if we're calling it You Got Snapped or You Just Got Snapped. I've been
Okay.
I've been calling it You Got Snapped, but you've been saying You Just Got Snapped. So we need to talk about what to call it.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't even come up with my own name. So yeah, yeah. So those are coming out. I'm gonna try to do those on Wednesdays for same day releases, since all the major changes usually takes place on Tuesday. So that gives me a chance to kind of go through and see what's going on, what new cards are out. So the second episode, I'm really excited about that one. It is a longer episode because I wanted to cover like what I like to do, or what I like to think of when I create like a new deck.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey, you've jokingly stated in the past, like, oh, I just use like one deck and just change it up. I'm the opposite. Like, I'm actually annoyed that there's a 20 deck maximum. I'd probably have 30 or 40. I don't know.
Well, you have the
I just
cards for that, though.
I know that's what's funny about it, because I think of these really cool combinations, and then like I'm stuck with, oh crap, which deck do I delete to try this and see if it'll actually work. So half the time I end up not even doing my ideas because of that, which is sad. But yeah, so this one is a longer one. We talk in depth with that. I also share my most trying to think of a way to phrase it, my highest winning deck, but also my favorite deck. That's actually the first one that I talk about. I go very in depth with the the ideology behind it and why I created it the way I did, and I'll try to find the Marvel Snap stats, and I'll start linking those when I do future episodes. But I'll share that one. I think the win rate on that deck in particular is like 65 to 68% anytime I use it. So I've been very very successful with it. And then yeah, so if anyone is watching those and you have any ideas or any questions, definitely let me know. The main content will be just talking about the newly released stuff the day after, so that way we get a chance to look at it and check it out and see if it makes sense. Do we like it? Do we hate it? And then beyond that, I'll have like I wouldn't even really call them filler episodes, but these longer episodes where we just cover like specific topics. Like there's another one that I'll have out soon that talks about when to spend like real world money, in Snap, because it is a mobile game and it's hard. I know you can play it on the PC as well, but they're out to make extra cash when they can. So if you're new to the game, I think that's an excellent episode as well. Or even if you're a veteran and you're just wanting to, look at different points of view. So just give you some things to think about. But
You're
a lot of fun with that.
You're not gonna be able to see this until the episode airs, but I'll show the webcam this. The best time to spend money is when the card you've been waiting for finally pops up, and the only thing you can do is spend like I think it was $25.
Oh no!
I bought the Black Widow bundle.
Nice. That one I agree with. I use Black Widow a bunch, so that's a good one.
I really wanted her. I had a couple of decks I wanted to put her in, and then I did. We actually, I wish we could just do a podcast about Marvel Snap. I would do that, but unfortunately,
maybe that's one of the episodes. We both just like talk shop for an hour.
We can do a bonus episode. Play some games. We could definitely do a bonus episode. I don't think we should do like a main podcast episode where it's just us playing Marvel Snap. I have so many things I want to do, bro. Like I just made a new show. There's a new show that I made. I spent over 20 hours writing, editing, and filming this damn show, and it's called Viral Retrospective. And what the show is I'm basically going back and looking at viral games that's happened over the last 10. Probably I'm going back to 2006 or so. Like basically the point is games that went viral on YouTube and got way more attention than they probably could or otherwise should have. And the first episode was over Five Nights at Freddy's since the 10-year anniversary is coming up. So I want to do that. I also want to do like a history of X genre because I really just want an excuse to like gush over horror and fighting games and RPGs and talk about like Sweet Home for the Famicom and all that stuff. So I'm probably going to start working on that fairly soon. But yeah, if you're somehow watching or listening to this, go watch that show because it's probably the best thing I've ever made. But the issue is not that people are watching, it's people are clicking it to begin with. I know for a fact that if somebody starts watching that, they're gonna enjoy it because I went all in with the avatars. I got visual jokes. Like I really worked so hard on that.
That's awesome.
But yeah. So I think that's all we have for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. And of course, as usual, we love to know what you're playing down in the comments below. If you're playing Marvel Snap, tell us what deck you're using. Just all the comments. Putting comments in a video, liking the video, it tells YouTube that, hey, I like this content. And also, these people deserve a place in the algorithm. So that's the best thing you can do if you want to help out the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. I believe that's all. So, deuces, dummies.
Have a good one, everybody.